Hi guys, welcome back to my page. I've been wanting to do this topic for a while, you guys, and I've been putting it off because some events have been happening within the African American community that have affected the African American community across this country. So I kind of been more focused on, police brutality and justice, but this topic is one that came to my mind, I would say maybe several months ago. And I told myself that, I'm going to go ahead and do this topic and talk about it in detail. But I kind of been putting it off. So now I finally found the time to do it. And I would love to hear you guys' input on it. Feel free to comment and share your thoughts below. As the title says, homosexuality, are people born gay? Now I'm going to read you guys some statistics first before I get started. Surrounding countries where homosexuality is punishable by death. So I'll read you guys the countries first, and I'm going to talk to you guys about my perspective on this. So there are several countries where the person is found out to be gay or committing homosexual acts, they will be killed. So in Yemen, according to the 1994 Penal Code, married men can be sentenced to death by stoning for homosexual intercourse. Unmarried men face whipping or 1 year in prison. Women face up to 7 years in prison. Iran, in accordance with Sharia law, homosexual intercourse between men can be punished by death, and men can be flogged for lesser acts such as kissing. Women may be flogged. And I'm sure that flogging is done publicly. So it's like a public shaming of people who commit these acts. Mauritania, Muslim men engaging in homosexual sex can be stoned to death according to a 1984 law. Though none have been executed so far, women face prison time. So a few more other countries. Nigeria, federal law classifies homosexual behavior as a felony punishable by imprisonment, but several states have adopted Sharia law and imposed a death penalty for men. A law signed in early January makes it illegal for gay people countrywide to hold a meeting or form clubs. This is in Nigeria. Please let me know if you guys can hear me. I have a slightly different setup than usual, so hopefully you guys can hear. Qatar, Sharia law in Qatar applies only to Muslims who can be put to death for extramarital sex regardless of sexual orientation. Let me do something real quick. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Change the setup a little bit. There. Okay. So the countries I've named so far where people can be sentenced to death for homosexuality are Yemen, Iran, Mauritania, and Nigeria. The next one is Qatar. Sharia law in Qatar applies only to Muslims who can be put to death for extramarital sex, regardless of sexual orientation. Saudi Arabia, under the country's interpretation of Sharia law, a married man engaging in sodomy or any non-Muslim who commits sodomy but a Muslim can be stoned to death. So there are a lot of laws surrounding Muslims and what, they can do in terms of their sexual preferences. Afghanistan, the Afghan Penal Code does not refer to homosexual acts, but Article 130 of the Constitution allows recourse to be made to Sharia law, which prohibits same-sex sexual activity in general. Afghanistan's Sharia law criminalizes same sexual acts with a maximum death penalty. No known cases of death sentences have been meted out since the end of Taliban rule in 2001. There are a few more. Somalia, the penal code stipulates prison, but in some southern regions, Islamic courts have imposed Sharia law and the death penalty. In Sudan, now when someone is flogged, that's like a public beating, you guys. In Sudan, and it could result in death. You guys saw the movie, The Passion of the Christ, what they did to Jesus Christ, That was a flogging, and look what happened. He died. In Sudan, 3-time offenders under the sodomy law can be put to death. First and second convictions result in flogging and imprisonment. Southern parts of the country have adopted more lenient laws. United Arab Emiratis, lawyers in the country and other experts disagree on whether federal law prescribes the death penalty for consensual homosexual sex or only for rape. In a recent Amnesty International report, the organization said it was not aware of any death sentences for homosexual acts. All sexual acts outside of marriage are banned, so they can't even have sex outside of marriage. So those are countries where you can face the death penalty for being homosexual. Now, I want to give you guys some countries where another list basically of countries where homosexuality is illegal. So they may face punishment by the law, not necessarily death, but they still will face punishment. And a lot of these countries are in Africa, you guys, on the continent of Africa. Some of the countries within Africa where homosexuality is illegal include Algeria, Angola, Botswana, Burundi, Cameroon, the Comoros, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Kenya, Liberia, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, Namibia, Nigeria, Senegal. It's a long list. And I think Africa has 54 countries, and out of the 54, 33 have made it illegal. You have Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tunisia, Uganda, Togo, Tanzania, Swaziland, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Sierra Leone, Senegal. In the Middle East, including Asia, you have Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Brunei, India, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Malaysia, Oman, Pakistan. There are quite a bit of countries in the Middle East. Syria, Yemen, where that's one of the countries I named where you can be put to death. In the Americas, we have Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, you guys. Probably wouldn't think Barbados would make that list. Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica. I know that's not a surprise to most of you guys because, you guys are familiar with the Jamaican culture, know that they have a very low tolerance for people who are gay. And St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. Now, when we jump back over to America, our country, here's a ranking by state of homosexuals by state. So California ranks number 1 with the highest percentage of homosexuals. The LGBT community ranks number 1 in California. Then we have Texas, we have New York, Florida, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Washington, Arizona, Indiana, Virginia, Missouri, Maryland, Oregon, Kentucky, Tennessee, Colorado, Wisconsin, and the list goes on. So I wanted to kind of read some of those statistics to you guys so you guys can get an idea that although homosexuality is, I guess, more welcome in the United States, although there's still places in the U.S. that detest the behavior of homosexuality. A lot of homosexual couples are being attacked and ridiculed, even in the United States. But when you take the United States and compare it to other countries, we are more welcoming. We have a more lax policy and law surrounding homosexuality that gives people who are homosexual the freedom, the right to be homosexual, and the right to, choose whether they want to be with another man, or another woman. And the fact that homosexuality is illegal in certain countries tells us how they conceptualize homosexuality, which I think is the most important factor, the most important point really of this video. Because if a country looks at homosexuality as a crime, essentially what they're saying is that homosexuality is a choice that everyone has. Because it wouldn't make sense for a country to penalize someone if they saw that the act in of itself was an expression of a biological predisposition that they have. So the very fact that they have labeled the act of homosexuality as a crime goes to show you how they view homosexuality. Look at it as something that people choose. It's more of a choice as it is something that is a biological predisposition, something that they don't have control over. So that I want to come to you guys to ask you guys, what do you guys think? Is homosexuality something that people choose, or is it something that people are born with, that they have no choice over? Now, me, with my exposure to many different theories, not just theories, but people who are part of the lifestyle, I will have to say that I believe it's a combination of both. So I believe that people can either be born gay, or people can make a choice to live a lifestyle of gay. And I know that people for whom they perceive their homosexuality as something that they were born with, a lot of times they take offense to that when they hear people say that homosexuality is a lifestyle choice, and I will have to go and say that for some people it is. For some people, it's a lifestyle choice. And I know some people will make the argument that to say that actually, no, people are born with it. It's not a lifestyle choice. It's just that when people come out, as they say, basically when people, they come out of the closet, they let the world know who they are. They stop hiding behind this wall within this cage, because we know that society condemns this behavior because it's not considered to be the norm, essentially. So anybody who practices homosexuality, even in America, is looked at as if something is wrong with you. And for people who believe that they were born gay, they tend to take offense when someone says a person can choose a lifestyle. But I think that that's just a narrow-minded way of thinking, to assume that only a person can be born gay. I mean, there's also this premise that when people come out, that they've been gay all along, It's not that they chose to come out, they're choosing that lifestyle at that point in time, but that they were essentially gay from the start. I would like to say it's a combination of both. I think that there is a spectrum of homosexuality. It's a spectrum in which we can conceptualize homosexuality and view these different subsets of sexual preference expressions within the domain of LGBT and the LGBT community. So, I think that it's a very complicated issue. It's not something that's cut and dry or black and white. It's not a matter of, you have people over here who choose to be gay, and then you have people over here, who have no choice or are born gay. I think it can be a combination actually of both, where a person, can have a certain genetic predisposition to having a same-sex preference. And then you have people who, based on their exposure and based on their developmental experiences in life, through childhood, adolescence, and adult, those experiences have shaped them to formulate this decision as to how they want to express their sexuality. At the end of the day, I still feel that people should have the right. People should have the right to identify themselves and be who they are, especially if it's not harming anyone else. I think that biologically, depending on someone's biological makeup, a person can have more genes that give them a certain genetic expression where they do have a predisposition to develop certain physical characteristics that aren't necessarily considered normal. The average person wouldn't look at as normal. So you may have women, although they were born with female genitalia, they still may have more testosterone. Their body still may produce more testosterone. And likewise for a man, although they have male testicles and they have male genitalia as far as a penis, their body may still produce more estrogen, or certain female hormone characteristics that you only would expect to see in women. I think that, one cannot be so quick to assume that just because a baby doesn't have any complications in the womb, and when they come out of the womb, they appear to be quote unquote normal, but then we have to ask ourselves, what is normal? I think that there's so many different variations of our genetics that come into play, and one really can't be so sure, I think, to make the claim that people aren't necessarily born gay, or people aren't born with a certain genetic predisposition. I think this topic is touchy, because for some people, this is who they are. This is what they know, and they feel like they have little choice. They feel they have little choice over the matter, or no choice over the matter, and yet they are being viewed in a certain light. They're being viewed through a certain lens, based on how the majority of people in society think they should see homosexual people. I think a lot of times, we tend to judge and mislabel things that we don't quite understand. You have homosexual people who can recall growing up, and they can think about how their childhood was when they were growing up, and they say that, I remember that I always had, let's say, take for example, a male who is attracted to other men. They may say something to the effect that I've always had an attraction towards, the same sex. I remember they'll say even when I was little, I always used to have this desire, to be with the same sex. I never saw myself being anything else. I find it very interesting. I identify myself as a heterosexual, but I can recall myself even growing up that I know my childhood as a woman, as a girl growing up to become a woman. I think that it didn't fit the norm. I wasn't the typical female or girl growing up. Even for myself, I remember I was a tomboy. And I actually preferred to hang around boys, and I think that it could have a lot to do with my genetic makeup. What is it about me that pulled me in the direction of hanging with boys? What is it about myself that made me feel uncomfortable hanging out with other girls when I was younger? And I was talking about, this is grade school. I was really young. This is before puberty. So I wasn't thinking about sex or anything like that. This is just talking about my play partners, who I preferred to hang out with. I remember being a young girl, being raised by my mom and my father. And my mom, of course, would do my hair. And she, at the time I didn't have a perm. Of course, I have, natural hair. And she would straighten my hair. And then following that, she would want to put these barrettes in my hair and make me look like a pretty girl. And I remember fighting my mom because I did not want to put those bows in my hair. I did not want barrettes in my hair. I did not want, to look like a girl. I wanted to look, quote unquote, like a boy. But even those constructs of what a boy looks like and what a girl looks like. I feel like it can be really misleading, for our culture to put those labels and those stereotypes of what we think a boy should look like, what we think a girl should look like. And it's like we're forcing children into certain gender roles based on their genitalia. I remember I made a post recently about this topic, and somebody commented and said that they thought that our genitalia is what determines our sexuality, our sexual preference. And I say, interesting. One would think that, okay, what's between your legs can determine your gender identity, your gender expression, but I don't know. I think that gender identity thing can be very complicated. Trying to really wrap your mind around it and really understand it. Because like I said, even when I was growing up, although I identify myself as a heterosexual female, when I was growing up, like I was attracted to playing rough. I was a tomboy. I was climbing trees. I was playing football. To me, it wasn't interesting to hang with girls and to play with Barbie dolls. Although my mom bought me baby dolls, because of course I think parents, they want to follow what's considered to be normal. So they'll buy their girls baby dolls and put them in pink dresses and put, the barrettes in their hair. And for boys, they say that they have to play with trucks and they can't play with dogs. They got to play with Legos. But for me, I had more of an interest in playing with boy toys. I had more of an interest in playing with the boys. And this continued even when I was in adolescent age, where, I was a preteen and even a teenager, still wanting to do the things that boys do. I felt like hanging out with the boys, I felt powerful. I felt like it was the end thing to do. I felt like it was cool. I don't know. That's where I found my place. And I felt like girls were just too prissy and just too whiny and cried over the smallest things. So with I guess my personality, I think being more of a alpha female, it directed my gender expression when I was younger. So I think even in some of my pictures, when I go back and look at my pictures when I was younger, you may not be able to tell if I was a girl or a boy because of how my hair was. Like I would literally fight my mom and not want those bows in my hair. I didn't like, she would try to put my hair in ponytails and stuff, and I would take the bows out. Like she would put the bows in my hair, but they wouldn't stay there for long. I would definitely take them out. And so my dad, he always had a camera and would take pictures. And you can see how in a lot of those pictures, you may not be able to tell if I was a girl or a boy because I felt cool. I felt cool not having to wear my hair in barrettes and wear certain colors. I was more neutral. I was more gender neutral. And I think that, like I said, I carried through adolescence and even through my adult life where, even till this day, I have my ears pierced because it's something that I think I just did as part of the trend, as a teenager. So I do have like 5 holes in each of my ears. I got my ears pierced, but I don't wear earrings to this day because that's just not my thing. I prefer not to wear earrings. I do paint my nails. I gotta paint my nails again, so please ignore the polish. But I put fingernail polish on my nails, and sometimes I go to the nail salon and get my nails done. But even with that, is that a girl thing to do? Is it a guy thing to do, or is it just something that looks cool or fashionable? I don't know. You guys be the judge. But for me, I just think that I think it's best to not necessarily force certain quote unquote gender roles onto a kid, but to allow them to choose. Allow them to choose what's more comfortable for them. Because I think at the end of the day, my mom making me wear dresses made me not want to wear a dress, made me not want to, I don't know, be the typical female, as you would say. She would put me in dresses and she would always try to tell me how to sit, and I would have my legs sit, just regular, right? Like how boys sit, just sit down. And she was like, no, cross your legs because you're wearing a dress. And I'm like, well, don't put me in a dress. If you're so concerned about me having my legs open and sitting gap leg, then why force girls to put on dresses, To this day, you guys, I don't even wear dresses. I can't even recall the last time I wore a dress, to be honest with you guys. And I remember doing a YouTube video. This was years ago. I mean, many years ago. I started my YouTube channel in 2011. And I remember one of my first videos, I talked about that how I didn't carry purses for a long time. I think I went through certain phases where I would, I guess, act like a girl or dress like a girl and carry a purse and wear makeup. And I think that was more like my high school years towards the end of high school. And then I went through a phase where I just did not carry any purses. I felt comfortable in not having to carry, I felt like it was a baggage, around with me everywhere I went. I just felt more comfortable, even till this day. Like, I carry a purse. Let me show you guys. I actually bought a new purse. But even till this day, like, I mean, this is the purse that I have. I carry something like this, but I don't feel like a purse should define who I am. I just carry a purse because I have my keys in there and, of course, wallet and stuff like that. But if I could go back to the days where I didn't carry a purse, I think I would. I think now I've just kind of gotten so accustomed to carrying purses, thanks to my ex, who I was just last dating, where, he started buying me purses. And then I was like, okay. And he was buying me like, name brand purses or whatever, Michael Kors. And I'm like, okay. I started back carrying purses. And since then, I think I just been transitioned from the designer bags that he bought me to these, which I feel is more natural and it fits more of my personality. But I still feel like it's baggage, like when you think about what's in a purse and how much it weighs, it's like it's just extra baggage, And I feel like at the end of the day, we all should have the right to choose and not be forced. And I think that it really takes a person with an open mind set to consider many different possibilities of how a person can arrive at becoming a homosexual. I think that when I talk about how I think a person's sexual expression can be shaped by their experiences in life, their developmental experiences, what I was talking about was just their experiences dating, and dating, or, in their culture. I see a lot of women who turn gay. Yes, that is such a thing. I know a lot of people were born gay. They just swear by that and they don't think there's no other possibilities that exist. But no, I'm here to say that you have women who were born heterosexual. They always had an interest in the opposite sex, but through certain experiences, unfortunate experiences in their life, those experiences have shaped them. They've become aversive towards men. They develop this aversion towards men where it's like a food aversion. You eat something and it upsets your stomach, chances are you're going to develop it's called a food aversion, where you don't even want to eat nothing that smells or tastes anything like that. So I think the same thing applies when we talk about sexual preferences. If a person, let's say you're heterosexual, but you have these negative experiences one after another with the opposite sex, who society says this is who you're supposed to date. You're supposed to date the opposite sex. And over time, throughout your developmental history, you've had these experiences. Let's say you're a man, you've had these experiences with women. Maybe it started at a very early age when you were young and you were raped by a female caretaker, and then that evolved into you trying to position yourself, with women in terms of dating. But then you have these issues where you feel uncomfortable because now this is the experiences that you've experienced as a child have come to surface. You guys remember that movie, Antoine Fisher? But that reminds me so much of that movie where he had these experiences where he was raped. He was raped by a caretaker. And from that, he developed an anxiety when he's around women as he got older. And he didn't even know what this anxiety came from, where it came from. You know, he had to go to counseling to really understand that it was because of the abuse he had endured as a child that he had this reluctance. He had this fear, this anxiety when it came to him positioning himself with a woman, you know? And I just find that pretty interesting. You can go both ways. You know, women, and I think it happens often to women where women have these negative experiences with men, you know, after when they reach puberty and thereafter, and they develop an aversion towards dating men. They're like, I'm tired of men. I can't stand men for whatever reason, whether they've been cheated on or mistreated. They don't want to date another man. I've seen that happen to friends of mine where I've known these women for a long time, and I saw that they were heterosexual, you know. Never in a million years would have a person have thought that they would want to choose the same sex, but they crossed over and they said this is what I want based on their experiences with men who they just were fed up with and tired with. So I create this video to say that yes, it can be a combination. It can be either a person was born gay, or they, based on certain experiences in life, they chose a lifestyle, or it could just simply be both, a combination of both. But at the end of the day, I still feel that people should have the right, considering that it's not harming anybody, to be gay. I can understand from an evolutionary standpoint, from a biological and reproductive standpoint, procreative standpoint, how society would assume that homosexuality could be a threat to the race, to the human race, if they give people permission to marry the same sex. And they may assume that if more people are becoming gay and are marrying the same sex, then they feel that it may reduce the birth rate in our society, and less people will procreate in that sense. But I don't think that's true, because just as many, I think still you're always going to have more heterosexual people. Although it seems as though the whole world is turning gay and everybody in America is becoming gay, I feel like innately, I feel like you're still going to have those people who are still the majority, in our country, who prefer the opposite sex because they feel that's just natural. If you have female genitalia, you have a vagina, they feel that's just the right fit to date someone who has a penis, because how else are you going to procreate if that's your end goal? Of course, nowadays with technology and medicine, there's in vitro fertilization where couples, same-sex couples, can successfully procreate. The same woman that I told you about just a few minutes ago, who actually lived her whole life as a heterosexual and then had some bad experiences with men and decided to just throw in the towel and say she's going to go gay. She's now getting ready to have a baby by her wife, essentially. So it's very possible to procreate as a same-sex couple. Is it as easy? No, because it costs money to do that, and then you're playing with science, essentially. But it's still possible. There's still hope. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Is homosexuality, should it be considered a sin, number one? Because even in the Bible, I haven't addressed that yet, but when you look at what the Bible says, and I think religion plays a major role into shaping the laws of our society and dictating how people should live their lives. It's really the religion that tells us homosexuality is a sin, and God detests it. He hates it. Somehow society has basically taken that scripture to say that God hates the act of homosexuality, and have changed it and has morphed it into that God hates homosexuals. And it's like, how can God hate anybody? a thing that has supposed to be represent agape love, unconditional love, how could it hate anybody? At the end of the day, I feel like people should just still have the right to choose, who they want to be with and what's most comfortable for them. I feel like to me, I think it's more damaging to force children to fit within a certain gender stereotype. I felt like I went through that, when I was growing up, where my mom tried to force me to fit this idea, this stereotype of what she thought based on her socialization in society, what she thought a female child should look like and act like and talk like. And I acted nothing like that. And I think people somehow miss the idea that a female can still be a female even if she's quote unquote masculine. I think that it's like we put a person in a box. We put those restraints on a person to say that no, only females can be feminine, but females can be masculine and men can be feminine. There are men who are alpha males and there are men who are beta males. But to say that just because a person doesn't fit the mold of the stereotype, then you label men who don't fit that mold as sissies, or they're soft, or they're bitches, and then you label women who don't fit that stereotypical mold, what they think a female should look like and act like. Oh, she's a butch, she's a dyke. All these labels, just to stir people away from it. It's just like people can't help who they are. I can't help that I'm a alpha female. And it really gets complicated in the context of BDSM, which is a whole nother topic, you guys. A whole nother topic. But, I've said, previously, you guys have seen my videos where I've talked about how I identify myself as a submissive and who prefers a dominant man. So it really does get complicated in trying to understand, okay, how can you be submissive and alpha female at the same time and attract a dominant man? And it's like, oh, it's possible. It's a matter of a person understanding that. I think that, we as men and women have to be able to understand that women come in many different shades. Men come in many different shades, and you can still be a man. You don't have to lose your identity as a man based on your assigned sex at birth just because you act more feminine. And likewise for a female, just because you're assigned a female at birth based on your genitalia, that doesn't make you less of a woman if you don't wear high heels or dresses, I still feel like I'm a woman, and I think it really takes self-confidence. It takes knowing who you are to be comfortable in your own skin, despite what society tells you should be. Society may say, no, you need to be this way and act this way, and if you don't, then you're going to get stoned to death and you're going to be ridiculed and this and the other. I mean, it's unfortunate how some countries it's illegal, so it's almost like you have no choice. And I think that's where the resistance comes in, where you see people deciding to take a stand and fight against it. And that's what it takes for laws to be changed. I mean, look at civil rights, the civil rights movement in America. It's been a long time for African Americans that we couldn't do certain things, but we had to stand up and resist and fight against the legal structure, the political structure of our country, so that we could be granted those same rights and the freedom to be able to just be alive in this country as an African American, to exist. So same thing applies to when it comes to your sexual expression. People have to, in these countries where it's illegal, have to stand up and fight if they truly believe that, okay, this is who I am. This is who I am. They don't see it as a crime, but their society where they live views it as a crime. Then you just have to stand up and fight, and it's not going to be an easy fight, unfortunately, But I feel like with time, and if enough people in numbers stand behind this, then who knows? The countries that I named, Iran, the countries in Africa, could possibly legalize it and accept it. Now, I know a lot of you guys who are Pan-African are saying, wait a minute, that is some gay shit and that's wrong, that's fucked up. You should not be promoting, encouraging people to be gay. But it's just like a person is going to be who they are regardless of what society tells them they can or can't do. You get what I'm saying? So this is just a matter of giving people their rights, giving people the right to just exist without ridicule, without being stoned or killed. It's just about a basic human right. It's not about necessarily picking sides and saying, no, this is right or wrong. We're not even talking about that. I think at the core, at the foundation, everyone, despite their sexual preference or their sexual expression or their gender identity or expression, regardless of that, we have the right to be treated as human beings and with respect, Because you can't make the determination to say that that's because a person is homosexual, they chose that lifestyle. Who are we to make that determination? It's very hard to even make that determination. That's why I pose as an open question. I want you guys to feel free to comment below. Can a person be born gay? How do you guys conceptualize homosexuality? Do people really have a choice? If a person innately isn't in them to have a certain expression, and within that gender expression, they attract people of the same sex, it's like, who are we to say they shouldn't be doing that? That's wrong for them to do. And in fact, at the end of the day, it's their life. It's something that they will live with. Who are we to say that it's wrong? I just find it interesting. This topic is really interesting because it really affects so many different areas of life, especially in my work. You guys know I am in my second year of a PhD program, training to become a psychologist. And definitely in the field of mental health, whether health period, just in the health profession, they're leaning more towards basically embracing many different sexual expressions, no matter if a person is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex. At the bottom line, people have the right to be treated fairly and equally. That's what it's about, because when you put these labels on people and just say, oh, that person is this, so we should treat them as such, people start to run, they run off with it, They run with it and it becomes something else. It becomes where people start attacking people. People start making people feel less than who they are just because of their particular expression of their gender or their sexual preference, when really, how is that impacting you? It's like to attack a person or to mistreat a person or to treat people unfairly just based on that. That's not right. So within, a lot of professions, they have this clause to say that we don't discriminate against people based on not just, race and religion, but based on their gender identity and their sexual expression or preference, or however you want to conceptualize it, At the end of the day, people are just people. And it's like, who are we to judge? But, of course, we all have our own opinions. So I want you guys to share what you think below. And I'll catch you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.